Welcome everyone to the Dekalb NAACP candidate forum that we're doing virtual. Our candidate forum for tonight is the Dekalb Board of Commissioners. It is an educational forum, and it does include the 2 seats that have oppositions in it. So that's why it's combined for District 1 and District 6, because the way we want to educate our people is that when you become a Board of Commissioners member, you represent all of DeKalb, no matter what district. So the questions that we have is not for one district or the other, it is for all that are interested in being a part of the Board of Commissioners. So tonight we have some great people who are gonna do some great things, and what I'm here to do is, one, welcome you, and I am introducing our co-host for tonight. And our co-host is Edwina Clanton, and Ms. Edwina Clanton is our 3rd Vice President, and she's doing a wonderful job with DeKalb NAACP, and I'm gonna turn it over to her.
All right, well, hello everyone, and thank you all for joining us. I want to introduce tonight's moderator, who is Tharon Johnson, who is the founder and CEO of Paramount Consulting Group, which specializes in media affairs, government affairs, and electoral strategy. He is also a panelist on Fox 5 Georgia Game. And without further ado, I turn the forum over to him.
Thank you so much, Edwina. And I want to first thank you so much again for those kind words of introduction. And I want to give a big thank you to the Dekalb County NAACP for hosting this forum, and so much respect for President Hardy and all the work that you guys are doing. So thank you so much for allowing me to moderate this very important forum. So to all the candidates, we're going to have some fun tonight. So I've got a chance to know Emily and Maryam and Ted and Robert. I'm going to get to know you tonight very well. But I think tonight, what we want to do, we want to have fun. We want to be very open and transparent about this position that you're running for. And as our president said before, this is a forum. This is really sort of an educational opportunity for the DeKalb County residents to really learn more about the county commission and DeKalb, but also to really hear you all's visions. And we got a lot of progress in DeKalb County, but we got a lot of things that we want to focus on. So we're going to first start off by going over the rules and regulations. And so we're going to give everyone an opportunity to get 2 minutes to do an opening statement, and I'll pick the orders. And then after everyone is done with the opening statements, I will go into a series of questions. And each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question. And I'm going to repeat that. You'll have 1 minute to answer the question. If I ask a 2-part question, which I may do, then you'll have 2 minutes to answer it. And once we go through that, each candidate will have an opportunity to also answer some questions from our chat room. And so one of the things that we want to encourage everyone to do is to make sure you put your questions to us, and then out working with a good team over at the NAACP to make sure that I ask a few questions. So once we go through the series of questions that I'll pick, and once we go through the questions that will come to me in the chat, we'll give candidates an opportunity to do closing statements. And those closing remarks, we got about 10 minutes allocated for it. So I think we'll give each candidate probably 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes and 30 seconds to do closing remarks. So are there any questions? Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to start with the ladies. So Ted and Robert, you guys are going to have to wait because, you know, women rule the world, and we want to make sure we pay respects to them. And so with that being said, we're going to go to Maryam Ahmad first, and then Emily, you next. And then Ted, you will go third, and then Robert, you will bring it home for us. That sound good?
Yep.
All right, you guys have 2 minutes.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much, NAACP, for giving me an opportunity to be here. Once again, my name is Maryam Ahmad, and I am a public health professional and community activist that was born and raised in DeKalb County. I attended all public health schools before going to Emory University to get my Bachelor's of Science in Anthropology and Human Biology. And afterwards, I went to Georgia State University to get my Master's in Public Health. During this time and after, I actually worked at the DeKalb County Board of Health in the refugee and tuberculosis clinics before taking a job as a data analyst for major public health studies. Also, I've been very, very involved, like I said, in community activism. I'm one of the founding members and current board members for House of Globalization, which focuses on advocacy for human trafficking and domestic violence victims. I also have worked at the Atlanta City Detention Center, well, for the detainees to link them with legal services as well as even to their own families. I've also led organizing for community needs, and I've assisted organizations that have focused on food insecurities and other major issues in the community. I'm very, very passionate about bringing positive changes to DeKalb. I'm focused on transforming policy to create a health forward vision that actually reconnects all of the social determinants of health and success, really, with decision making at the top. The average person doesn't have a whole lot of time to engage, so it's really up to the government as well as the individual for civic engagement. And so as a data analyst, I also intend to use actual data and representative data to decide policy rather than relying on personal relationships or self-interest.
All right, thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Many thanks also to the DeKalb NAACP for hosting tonight's forum. And thank you, Tharon, for hosting another one of our forums. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. My name is Emily Halevy. I'm a mother of two, a media executive, and a community advocate. Growing up in a military family, we moved 22 times across 5 states. It wasn't until I came to DeKalb County 17 years ago that I finally found home. I've planted my roots here and I don't intend to leave anytime soon. As a community advocate, I am passionate about improving the lives of all DeKalb residents. When a zoning notice was taped to my door a few years ago, I knew that I couldn't let my neighborhood fall without a fight. I had to learn quickly what protections we had as citizens and homeowners. I had to learn who our allies were on the commission and how to work with developers, not just against them. And the biggest lesson of all was that when we work together, we can achieve real progress. My fight became less about my own home and more for the support of our community at large. Through my advocacy work, I built the Coalition for a Diverse DeKalb, an affordable housing coalition that reaches every commission district in the county. I've worked tirelessly to expand safe, affordable housing options and educate residents on the value of creating equitable communities. I also now sit on the board of Project Community Connections, a rapid rehousing organization aimed at providing housing and wraparound services to those experiencing homelessness. For years, I've been fighting for safe, affordable housing, smart development, and transit options at the county level, and have gotten results that have improved our neighborhoods. I've seen firsthand how our communities are our county's greatest strength. I'm running to be your voice on the commission to address the many specific challenges to each of our neighborhoods, as well as work collaboratively with local, regional, and federal partners to tackle our county-wide problems. In addition to continuing my work on smart development policies focused around transit-oriented development and affordable housing, my focus, if elected, will be on reducing traffic and expanding transportation access and options throughout the county. I will also work to ensure there's accountability and transparency in all functions.
That's the time. Sorry about that, Emily. But thank you. Ted?
Thanks, Tharon, and thank you to the DeKalb NAACP for hosting this forum. Really, really appreciate it. And also, I want to just take a moment to recognize the work that the NAACP has been doing over the last several months when it comes to the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, and the revelations just in the last couple of days did not come to light on their own. They came because groups like the NAACP are fighting for justice every single day. And I'm running for the DeKalb County Commission because I want to work with the NAACP. I want to focus on equity and justice. I put out platforms on voting rights, on civil and human rights, on criminal justice reform. And the work that we can do in DeKalb County, I think, can lead the nation in making a more equitable and just society. I have over 15 years plus experience in public service, advocacy, and activism. I moved to DeKalb County in 2005, the summer of 2005, right near the North DeKalb Mall, and started on my first campaign working on the Sierra Club, knocking on doors in Decatur, in Avondale Estates, in Scottdale, and parts of Clarkston, early on. And I've lived here ever since. And I've worked on a lot of campaigns around the states and as well as here in DeKalb County. But my experience as mayor of Clarkston prepares me on day one to work on policy as well as constituent services for the people of the Super 6 district. I'm a proven leader, I have experience, and I'm focused on getting results for the people of Super 6, and as President Hardy said earlier, for all of DeKalb County.
All right, thank you, Ted. Robert?
Hey, good evening, everyone. First, I wanted to thank the NAACP for putting this forum together for us. It's very helpful. I also wanted to thank the first responders in the medical field that are working hard to keep us safe during the coronavirus. And I especially want to thank anyone who's in the food service or delivery business right now, because you are what's keeping all of us fed. So thank you. Additionally, I did want to express my condolences to the Avery family. We're all saddened by that tragedy, and without due process and justice, we're all diminished. So I hope that this gets resolved quickly. I immigrated to the United States in the 1980s with my family. I became a citizen in the mid-2000s. I've been a DeKalb County resident since 2003. I've worked for 13 years in a community development office as a city planner. And I've also been a Doraville councilman for the last 8 years. During that time, I was appointed mayor pro tem to represent the city. I've also been the president and vice president of the DeKalb Municipal Association. Throughout my time in office as an elected official, I have advocated for balanced budgets, infrastructure improvements such as roads, street pavings, investments in our parks and safe neighborhoods, and that included body cameras for police officers. I was part of the GM redevelopment negotiations, which is the largest viable redevelopment project in the southeastern United States. I've also worked to reduce government red tape, attract good businesses, while balancing the needs of code enforcement and zoning in our neighborhoods. Ultimately, everyone wants a safe and clean neighborhood. My goal is to replicate these successes at the county level. In addition, I plan to fix the DeKalb's water system, which has been aging. We cannot attract growth to our county without a functioning infrastructure. Throughout everything, I will work to maintain dignity and facilitate collaboration between our diverse communities that make up our county. Only by working together in partnership we can achieve these. And I'm running for District 1 DeKalb County. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all so much for those open statements. And I know we have a lot of people who are tuned in, and we want to make sure that we sort of lay the ground rules again. This is a NAACP DeKalb County forum. We have 3 candidates who's running for Super District 6, and we have 1 candidate who's running for District 1. And so again, this is opportunity for us to really kind of have an open conversation, a forum about some issues that are in DeKalb County. So I want to keep the theme of going with ladies first. And so I'm going to come to you first, Emily, and you got 1 minute to answer. And so in a few words, what would you say is the top role and responsibility for a DeKalb County Commissioner?
Thank you, Tharon. Yep, the top role of County Commissioner, one is oversight of the budget and approval of the budget. And the second is legislation. So we can really drive a lot of other policies based around zoning code as well. So one of my biggest focuses is going to be on affordable housing and how we can create policies around affordable housing to really create more equitable communities. And that is focused around transit-oriented development, potentially using inclusionary zoning as one of those aspects, and also creating more walkable and thriving communities. This is work that I've already been doing at the county level for many years. I've mentioned it before. I live just off Memorial Drive at the Kensington MARTA station. We have 2 stations left within on the MARTA line, the Kensington station and the Indian Creek station, that can both use a lot of attention. There's a lot of property there. In fact, just next week, there is a zoning application to have that property rezoned. I'm excited to dive into that process.
Thank you, time. I'm going to be pretty strict on this forum with this time, but thank you, Emily, for that. All right, next we're going to go to Robert. So Robert, again, the question, what do you think is the most important role, I want to emphasize the most important role and responsibility of a DeKalb County Commissioner?
Of course, as was just mentioned, the budget and legislative review is the top priority. But I also want to say it's going to be engaging with our communities. We have quite a variety of people. We have a very diverse county to begin with, let alone District 1 itself is pretty diverse. And it's finding ways to engage with all of our residents, regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of where they come from, and coming up with a quality legislation budget that is representative of the needs and the interest of the district.
All right, thank you, Robert. Our next, Maryam, I've said the question twice now, but again, what do you think in 1 minute is the most important role and responsibility of a DeKalb County Commissioner?
And yes, of course, the budget and the legislative duties, creating policies, we all know that's very important, but a really big part of being a commissioner is really to listen to everybody. And I mean everybody. Everybody deserves to have their voice heard, especially of what is lacking in their own communities, and being able to actually access the commissioner. Because for way too long, there's been a huge gap in between officials and the people that they are representing. And we have to make sure, if we are constantly claiming that we're doing things for community, then we have to actually ask community. It only makes sense. And so that's why I'm really, really pushing for really gathering data about what's lacking in public health for the community.
All right, thank you. Mayor Terry, I don't think I have to repeat the question again, but in 1 minute, why don't you give us your answer, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the county commissioners are the legislative branch of the DeKalb County government. And so first and foremost, it's being an advocate and a constituent representative to the CEO's office, to the executive branch, which provides the services that the county taxpayers pay for. And so whether it is a water pipe break or a water meter break, and you're not getting a response back from the water department quickly enough in an emergency, the commissioner's office is just there to be another squeaky wheel to make sure that people are getting the services they need. The other big thing, and maybe more specifically about the super commissioners, is that the super commissioners overlap with the other commissioners. So districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 all overlap with District 6. And so working hand in hand with those commissioners about the priorities of their district, I think really is probably the top sort of consideration of a super commissioner. And then one last thing I'll just add in there, and I believe that we should find ways to create more little d democracy and democratic action in DeKalb County. And so I've introduced a participatory budgeting idea that would allow people to decide how to spend their tax dollars.
All right, thank you. So with that being said, Ted, we're gonna stay with you on the next question, and everyone, I always try to mix it up here. So Ted, in all of your introductions, we've heard a lot about where you guys are running. I really want you all to talk about the issues. And this is, again, the NAACP. And President Hardy has gave me total reign to really push you guys on some issues. And so if you had to rank right now, from 1 to 3, with 1 being the most important, 2 being second most important, third, what would be, in 1 minute, the top 3 issues you think right now that are facing DeKalb County?
Oh, the top issues. Well, look, I think the largest policy platform and policy paper I put out is around a housing strategy for DeKalb. The Atlanta Regional Commission estimates DeKalb is going to grow to 1 million people by 2050. And I don't know where 250,000 more people are going to fit in DeKalb County. So we've got to address housing. We absolutely need to create a DeKalb land trust to start the functional process of preserving permanent affordable housing for DeKalb County. Water and sewer infrastructure, I think, is absolutely in that area. And then the final thing I would say is criminal justice reform. And one of the policies I put out that I know the NAACP has been a strong advocate for, and that's ending cash bail. And I believe that there is a way forward to not just end cash bail, but to get rid of the for-profit aspect of it. I think we should have a DeKalb bail bonds fund that is a revolving fund to help people who just cannot afford to bail themselves out in that intermediate time of ending cash bail.
All right, thank you so much, Ted. All right, Maryam, I'm coming to you second. So again, in chronological order, as far as priority, what are your, you think, the top 3 issues that are facing DeKalb right now?
I think number 1 is really inequality. Resources and opportunities are not distributed evenly at all. And this is a well-known fact. And so if different areas of DeKalb are being given more resources and other areas are being neglected, and that's not okay for anywhere in DeKalb. And that has been the case for a very long time. So I want to make sure that is not happening. And that is why I'm pushing so much for community inclusion, which goes to my second issue, is that definitely community inclusion is a huge problem because, you know, in reality, even where the apartment I've been living in for a long time, the rent has gone up like crazy, but is there really anybody asking what's the situation going on? Not really. So we really don't need to be spoken for at all. And so really those are my main issues. And I really want to focus on creating positive changes around that.
Thank you. Emily?
Thank you. You know, this COVID crisis has really altered a number of things for all of us. But first and foremost, it's also altered my priorities. Coming into this office, we need to create a COVID stimulus package. We need to keep an eye on the budget, make sure that we have the funds available for all of our essential functions. So that is priority number 1. Priority number 2, affordable housing. This has been my mission for the past several years. You know, I have personally worked to help find new housing for many of my neighbors. And it is so challenging because the housing stock is just not there. So we can work on that through inclusionary zoning, through working with community development and making sure we have adequate funds for housing and a housing trust fund set aside. But the third one, and I don't want to prioritize this as third, it works hand in hand, is transportation. We have to expand transportation access throughout the county.
All right, time. Thank you, guys, for that. Okay, so Robert, we're going to start with you now. And, you know, again, we're kind of getting into this. So we talked about why you guys are running. We learned about your bio, the work that you've been doing in the community. I asked you, what do you think the roles and the responsibility are of a county commissioner? I asked you what your top 3 issues are. So now I want to take a deeper dive into the economy. DeKalb County, you guys are thriving. You know, you got a good commission and a CEO that has eliminated deficit spending. The budget has been balanced, working with the CEO's office and the commission. But as Emily kind of pointed out, is that now what is going to be this new norm sort of post-COVID-19? So I want to start with you, Robert. If elected to the county commission, what would be your economic plan? I want you to be very specific. How would you continue the economic success post-COVID-19 in DeKalb County?
Okay. Thank you. First, I didn't answer those other questions, so give me 2 seconds to get into those, if you would. I think really the top priority for the county is going to be fixing the water and sewer system. Without that, we cannot attract economic development. DeKalb County becomes less desirable for other people to want to invest in here, and that affects our housing values. The other top issue, in my opinion, is transportation, that unless we have an alternative to 285 as a transportation route in DeKalb County, we're going to be sort of limited by what we have right now. The third item I think really is dignity. We need to treat each other with a bit more respect in the community. And we have a very, very diverse population. I think DeKalb was probably one of the first minority-majority counties in the state. And we have a good record of working together, but we also need to improve that and keep building on that. Next, in light of COVID,
let me interject there for a second. Hey, Nadine, I missed Robert on the last question, so I do apologize. So Robert, I'm gonna give you a minute to answer my new question. I'm gonna be fair and balanced on this forum. So Nadine is doing a wonderful job of keeping our time. So sorry to cut you off, Robert, but why don't you go into my question about, if elected, how will you continue to build upon the economic success in DeKalb County?
So really, I think it does come back down to fixing the water and sewer system. If we get that taken care of, a lot of businesses will be attracted here. Currently, if you look and see on our processes for a new restaurant, for instance, to open up in the county, it's taking anywhere from 6 to 8 months to get that water and sewer approval. That's critical because that brings jobs into our community. If you have access to water and sewer, you can have a business here. The next way to look at that also, though, is to work with the community block grants and look for other avenues that we can get residents to businesses as an alternative for transportation. A good trail system that's convenient access to either the buses or to MARTA that gets our residents to jobs. I think that's going to be critical. So again, transportation is that thing that has to happen. And then additionally, at the end of the day, zoning will be a factor, and we start looking at ways that we can protect our neighborhoods while not stepping on the toes of the residents.
Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna go to Ted next. Ted, again, how are you gonna help, if elected, how would you sort of continue to work with the DeKalb County CEO, if elected as a commissioner, to grow the economy in DeKalb County?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the first thing that I agree with Robert, and that is just to continue the work that's being done on water and sewer infrastructure. There are projects that are being delayed or not moving forward or might never ever happen, even being considered being put in DeKalb County because of those infrastructure concerns. So, it's not that any one person can get that done better than the other. It's just that it just needs to be the front and top of mind for the next many years ahead. We talked about this in previous forums, but Blackhall Studios is an example of an investment opportunity that's right here. The work of Metro South CID, but just the Development Authority of DeKalb, and that is the authority to help attract economic development opportunities. And so there is a plan that's out there, and we have to implement that plan and deliver results. And I think by investing in ourselves, we will see those long-term dividends pay off.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna go Emily next and then Maryam.
Thank you. Yeah, so my first priority would be to ensure that delivery of services are not interrupted. So we need to look at creating efficiencies in our budget where they've been lacking to ensure taxpayer value. As a commissioner, I would be proactive in advocating and securing all available funding for infrastructure projects, economic development, public health programs, and economic assistance programs needed from the federal government. The Board of Commissioners has the opportunity to review the budget twice a year. So we do need to continue forecasting revenues from sales taxes and property taxes and work proactively to secure funding where possible from alternative sources, both federally and philanthropically, to keep our momentum going. And we have great momentum right now, and we do need to keep that going. And really, one of the largest, most challenging aspects of working with any large bureaucratic organization is really starting to think outside the box. So realizing that the challenges that we face in the coming months.
Sorry about that. All right, gotta be fair. But with that, so what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna take a personal point of privilege, and I'm gonna try to ask some questions from our chat. And so again, I want to make sure I got the right order here. So Emily, to be fair to you, because I did cut you off, I will let you go first this time. And the question from our chat, and I want to read it to everyone. The first one that I got here, and again, we want to encourage everyone who's watching to please submit your questions. And we're going to do our best to try to get as many in as we can to try to be answered by our candidates. The first question is this: based on an Emory study, 50% of DeKalb County residents cannot truly afford their home. They are paying more than 30% of income on housing. What is your plan to increase affordable housing in DeKalb County for 30 to 60 AMI? So I want to make sure you heard that question.
Yes, thank you. I heard it. And I want to be clear that this has been my fight. This has been my passion for the past several years. And yes, Emory University was commissioned by DeKalb County in 2018 to create an affordable housing study. Since then, I have been pushing to keep this study from collecting dust and advocating for policies outlined in the study. One of the very first things that was clear to us was that we in DeKalb County are using less community development block grant allocations for housing. And so last year, myself and my coalition spent the better part of our work advocating for an increase in funds available and allocated to housing activities. And through my efforts, through our efforts with the coalition, the county will now see an increase over the next 5 years in affordable housing built. But the other component to this, which is very important, is that we have a very aged housing stock. And so we don't need to just think about building stock. We need to think about preserving our existing stock. And
sorry about that. All right, so Maryam, I think I did not let you answer the last question. So you guys are learning that I'm not perfect, but this is gonna go smoothly. So I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. And so Nadine, if you can work with me, we're gonna give Maryam 2 minutes. So I wanna repeat the questions, okay? First question I asked, which you did not get a chance to answer, because I know you have a lot of supporters watching, so I wanna make sure people think that you're being treated fairly, is what if elected commissioner, what will be your plan of action to try to continue the economic growth in DeKalb County? And then the second question, which you'll have 2 minutes to answer both questions, so please pay attention to the time, is based on an Emory study, 50% of DeKalb County residents cannot truly afford their home. They're paying more than 30% of income on housing. What is your plan to increase affordable housing in DeKalb County for 30 to 60 AMI? So you'll have 2 minutes to answer both of those questions.
Okay, thank you. So for the first question on the economic situation. So I think from this entire COVID pandemic, we have definitely seen that we have to think outside of the box, and economic development is extremely important. But if you don't have the base for economic development, which is health, that involves public health, is transportation, it is safety, it's green space, it's housing, it's jobs, it's clean water, it's fresh food. So if you have all of those needs met first, you can increase economic development. You know, like that was said before, us even having, you know, proper sewage systems and having clean water is definitely necessary for businesses. And also we want to focus on really, like I said, finding out what the public health needs are for all of these different communities. And then that is going to increase economic development, because you are increasing the productivity of people themselves as well, and they're not having to worry about things like paying for so much. And so I see I have 50 seconds. So the next question.
I'll give you a little bit of time. It's okay.
Thank you. I just, you know, want to be respectful. So anyway, I also, for affordable housing, I'm definitely experiencing that issue. So this is very important to me as well. And so it's very, very important that we actually incentivize developers to actually create these affordable housing units. And it's not really talked about, but there's actually no way to enforce that, you know, there's a 20% of affordable housing, or even actually that the materials that are being used for those affordable housing units are the same as other units, which is unacceptable. We all deserve to live in the same type of circumstances, not based off of income.
All right, thank you so much for that. All right, Robert, I'm going to come to you next. Do you need me to repeat the question, or do you got it under control?
I think I got it under control. I've been having some internet issues, so if you miss me, I apologize. We'll double up on it. In order to increase ultimately the affordable housing, you know, there are different ways to approach that. Of course, we've talked about the need for transportation, better connectivity. Perhaps a bus rapid transit system might be a good way to help get that cost down. We would also want to look into density. Perhaps smaller housing units would be more appropriate. If we do something like that, though, we also need to look into green space in order to increase the desirability and attractiveness of where people live. Strangely enough, it's been shown that trees help reduce crime. So green spaces for our residents that are safe and affordable are going to be important. When it comes to new construction, one of the problems we have, at least before COVID, is the cost of heated square foot is about $130 per heated square foot, which is tough. But if we can look into the GET program and reduce those costs, that's an option.
All right, thank you. All right, Ted, I didn't forget you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Tharon. The rent's too damn high, the mortgage is too damn high, and people right now are worried about paying the rent during this economic crisis. And so the immediate need is the triage of just preventing unnecessary evictions because of just not being able to pay the rent. And so I'm proud that in Clarkston, before I left as mayor, we established an affordable housing trust and actually raised $200,000 to put in that trust to help out in just like a time like this. And so I've been lobbying the Clarkston City Council as a citizen of Clarkston to use that, I guess I'm knocking on my door, to use that housing trust to support eviction relief. On my website, tedfordekalb.com, I've laid out a very comprehensive affordable housing policy, which includes doing tiny home and cottage home neighborhoods, doing more intergenerational senior living, as well as encouraging more workforce development apartment complexes that are locked in at 30 years, 30 to 50 AMI.
All right, time. Okay, I think I got everyone on this round. So what we're going to do here is I think I have permission from President Hardy, because this is the NAACP, and this is the oldest organization that has been fighting for criminal justice reform, equality, and particularly ending racism in this country. So I'm going to attack this head on. A couple of you in your remarks, you mentioned I believe, and it's just me speaking, so I want to protect the 501c3 status of NAACP. This is my comment. But I think what we saw happen in Glenn County in Brunswick was nothing short of a horrendous hate crime. And you had an innocent black man murdered by two white men while jogging in Glenn County. And this has turned into a national issue. And I know that the NAACP want to thank you all so much for the work that you're doing on this issue that you've been doing for over 100 years around dealing with some of the challenges we face as Americans, but particularly people of color. And so I want to take this question directly to Maryam first. And my question is this: if you were so fortunate to be, and that's okay, Ted, if you were so fortunate to be elected, would you be in support of hate crime legislation in Georgia? We're one of the few states that do not have a hate crime legislation. And what would you think the role of the commission would be if, hypothetically, we had the failure which we're seeing in Glenn County for a district attorney to bring up charges against a unarmed black man who was murdered? So I want to repeat the question. Do you support having a hate crime legislation in Georgia, which will be done by the state? I want to be clear, but you guys as county commissioners, you can introduce a resolution. And what would you do if you were on the county commission and you had a district attorney? Not saying this is happening in DeKalb County, but hypothetically, what would you think your role would be to encourage this district attorney to bring up charges or to thoroughly investigate in a transparent manner this I believe hate crime that happened in Glenn County?
It's definitely a hate crime. And so I support 1,000% hate crime legislation that you're speaking of. And honestly, it's crazy that it's 2020 and we still don't even have that in place. And to be quite honest, we have active hate groups here in Georgia. And it's just so sad that this is not just one case. There's so many cases, and let's be honest, the only reason this even came up is because nothing was being done. So that's why this even became, more of an issue for people. But this has continued to be such an issue for such a long time, and it's unacceptable. And especially as an activist, I have fought against this specifically, and actually working on a case right now in Atlanta. But anyway, yes, as commissioner, it's also our duty to also create legislation where we're stopping those hate groups.
All right, thank you. I'm going to come to you next, Ted.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a hate crime. And first off, if we ever had a DA, which by the way is elected here in DeKalb County, that was had the same situation that's happening out in Liberty County down in Brunswick, then we should be calling on the resignation. And if we can't get enough public pressure, or we can't get them to resign, we'll beat them at the next election and put in a DA that actually will enact reforms. I mean, we can run the gamut of implicit bias trainings, more civilian oversight, establishing hate crimes as something that is absolutely tracked by DeKalb police, and certainly lobbying the state legislature to enact hate crimes legislation, but also just state civil rights protections. You know, Georgia is one of the few states left in the country that doesn't have a state civil rights bill. I'm actually proud in Clarkston, there's a few cities around Georgia that have implemented citywide non-discrimination ordinances, which is not exactly same thing we're talking about, but it's all about ending discrimination and creating mechanisms to hold people accountable for that.
All right, thank you, Ted. Emily, I'm gonna come to you next, and then Robert.
Yeah, you know, this story is heartbreaking, and I want to be clear, it was murder. We are fortunate here in DeKalb that we have a district attorney who is leading and advocating for criminal justice reform. There is no doubt, though, that if we did not have that in our DA, I would be down at the Capitol every day advocating. And again, using my influence as commissioner to make sure we continue to advocate for hate crime legislation. Last year, I also advocated for the removal of our Confederate memorials in Decatur Square. You know, these are issues where, while we don't necessarily have the direct line to influencing change, we can use our position as commissioner to really work and lobby and bring community to the table to make sure we can influence our state legislature to move on this issue.
Thank you. Robert?
Thank you. As I said in my opening remarks, you know, without due process and justice, we are all diminished.
All right, we're gonna, Robert, are you still there?
I would advocate that this hate crimes legislation from the state legislature is a priority. I would reach out to our state representatives, Senator Harrell in particular, and push for this kind of representation or ordinance at the state level, especially with Georgia's history. I just think it's appropriate for right now that we have something like this on the books. While in Doraville, you know, we adopted the non-discrimination ordinance. We were the second after City of Atlanta, first in DeKalb County to do that. And I worked with Councilwoman Steffi Kuntz on that. We also are a welcoming city in Doraville and would advocate that for the county. I got 4 seconds.
Yeah, you got a little, you cut out there a little bit, so we want to give you a few more seconds.
Okay. Well, I would advocate at the state level for the adoption of a hate crimes legislation. I would also remind everyone that, you know, at Doraville, we were the second in DeKalb County to adopt the NDO, the non-discrimination ordinance, based on color, orientation, anything. And so that's ultimately the goal, is to have a diverse, dignified community.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I want to be fair because you guys got a lot of supporters watching. I don't want any random emails coming to me afterwards. And so I would say this, President Hardy, you got 4 people running for office right now who I think made some public commitments. And so you guys at NAACP, you should make sure you hold these folks accountable if they're so fortunate to be elected. All right. I want to go back to our audience. And so just want to be fair here. We got a lot of questions coming in. There was another question dealing with housing. And again, I think you guys did a really good job talking about affordability and housing in DeKalb. But we do have a question hear about Stonecrest. And the question is, how do we increase commercial zoning in Stonecrest? And so I want to be fair. I think what we'll do is, Robert, you haven't gone first in a while. I know Maryam went first last time. So again, the question is, and we understand that you guys may or may not represent this area, but I'm a huge fan of Stonecrest. I think Stonecrest has got so much potential. But how do we increase commercial zoning in Stonecrest or anywhere in DeKalb? But particularly if you can, we want you to explain your answer on Stonecrest.
Okay. My internet kind of dropped out, so I apologize, but I think you're asking about Stonecrest.
And commercial zoning. How do we increase commercial zoning in Stonecrest? All right, so we're gonna, I think, Robert, your internet is kind of shaky there. So again, we're gonna go to, are you back?
I'm back for now.
Okay, you're good, go ahead, buddy.
Stonecrest is its own city. And so we would want to make sure that.
Okay, it's going out.
It's okay. We're gonna be fair to Robert because we'll get it time. And so let's come back to you. So
Yeah.
Madeline, I'll if you may let me, I'll come back. I mean, sorry, Nadine. I said Madeline. Nadine, if you'll let me come back to Robert in a second. Why don't we go to Emily, and then we'll go to Ted, and then Maryam, and then we'll come back to you, Robert. So Emily, Ted, Maryam, and then we'll come back to Robert.
Thank you. Yeah, so City of Stonecrest, and I think this is where Robert was going with this, City of Stonecrest is its own city, and so they really cover their own zoning applications. But throughout the rest of DeKalb County, unincorporated, this is where the county commissioners can really make a big impact. For instance, like I said, I live right at the Kensington MARTA station, and we have been looking at LCI plans and transit-oriented development plans for a very long time. Interestingly enough, the Kensington MARTA station right now is zoned R75, which is residential. So we're looking at changing that zoning so we can make it either mixed use or high density development. That is the critical first step in making sure that we can bring actual commerce to these areas. So really looking at the map and looking at places, planning proactively, working with the Decide DeKalb to bring in businesses and look at where we can really create some change.
All right, thank you. All right, Ted, Maryam, and then Robert, we're gonna give you an opportunity to answer at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tharon. And so, yeah, the cities in DeKalb, they have their own local control over their zoning and a lot of, control over their destiny. And so I certainly wouldn't want to opine too much about what a county commissioner should tell a city what they should or shouldn't do. But what I will say is just from spending time with Mayor Larry and all the mayors in DeKalb County over the last 6 years, I've been privileged to on a monthly basis, meet with each of the mayors and city managers as part of the DeKalb Municipal Association Policy Council. So the number one thing I think for the county commissioner is to know what's going on in the cities. And I'll just answer it in the sense that county commission can't tell a city what to do, but there's a lot of things that we can do together. And whether that's joint infrastructure, transit investment, and certainly with the development authority, I think there's a ton of overlap between just what tax incentives are available between city and county.
All right, thank you, Ted. Maryam?
Yes, so definitely, it is its own city. Definitely a fan of the area, and really don't want to speak for people, of course. And like I have continued to say, it's really what the community is wanting. And we also do have to consider the businesses that have been there for a long time and have been paying taxes and have definitely been an asset to the community as well. So of course we want to increase that zoning, but it's very important to actually work with the city officials and the community members as well as the business owners, once again, especially that have been there and have really really spent their time, money, and energy. And, really, we should continue to empower and support those businesses as well, because we also don't want to displace those.
Thank you. All right, Robert,
All right, thank you. And I apologize for the internet speed. I can't do anything about that one.
It's okay.
But ultimately what I was trying to get at is City of Stonecrest is its own municipality, and we'd have to collaborate with them. And sort of that's ultimately the goal from a county perspective is this collaboration between the unincorporated as well as the cities for ultimately a better product. And that is looking at what's potential for jobs in the area. That means partnering with the Board of Education to see, you know, what are the skill sets that the kids are leaving schools with, and see if we have perhaps the next level of school or on-the-job training that can come along and encourage that type of job center that's convenient to housing, that's convenient to transportation. And I think that once we have that collaboration, that conversation from the county level, which is really where the county needs to provide that leadership, that we have sort of this one plan for DeKalb and we move forward.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna come back to the chat in just a second, but one of the things I wanna focus on, and Ted, we're gonna come to you first. And so I had an opportunity to talk to you guys in another forum about public safety and crime in DeKalb. And I wanna, this is the NAACP, so I want you guys to be specific. The question is around public safety, crime, but I also want to talk about whether or not you think DeKalb County has a problem with gang violence. And if so, elected as a county commissioner, how will you, in its totality, address the issue around public safety and crime? But in particular, what do you think about working with the CEO and as a commissioner, if you're elected, and dealing with your different public safety people, your DA, your solicitor, all these folks, to really try to reduce crime in DeKalb County?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So first off, I'll just say that Clarkson was very fortunate over the last 3 years to partner with DeKalb County Police Athletic League. Detective Griggs ran our Midnight Summer Basketball League, and we had over 100, mostly young men, but also young women, participate for 8 weeks for 3 summers in a row. And one of the things that he told me is that if we could do this program year round, we would help a lot of kids and a lot of young people who are looking for that mentorship, that leadership, that just coaching in general, whether it's basketball coaching or life coaching. And so there are models and programs that exist to connect community policing truly to the community. And we solve crime, and we solve violent crime by engendering trust and cohesion between the civilian population and law enforcement. And so that's why I've introduced civilian-led policing as a model of policing that we should consider for DeKalb County. It would create more civilian oversight, and I believe it would create the opportunity for more community policing.
All right, time. Okay, we're gonna go next to Maryam, and then we're gonna go to Robert, and then Emily, to you.
Yeah, so of course, safety is a very, very important issue, and we all want to feel safe where we're at. But let's really get down to it. What really creates that crime? Maybe if there were more allocation of resources and we really worked on the public health of individuals, we can really also change those stats. And I know that the stats for crime have been going down in DeKalb, but we have to treat people like people. And if you aren't setting people up for success through these public health determinants, how do you really expect people to, really be able to live in a safe environment? And that's not to say that those that are committing crimes are in any way right at all, but I'm just saying that as especially officials and leaders, you have to create safe environments for people. And also, yes, working with communities, because right now there is not a huge trust between community and officers. So really getting community engagement on that as well.
Okay, Tom, thank you. All right, Robert, and then Emily.
Okay, well, every community has some level of problem with crime. And in my experience, the best way to deal with that is through engagement. And that could start off directly with the government, either through the police department or Parks and Rec, or directly as our role as commissioners. But start off with neighborhood get-togethers. Simply getting out and having people talk with one another is the best thing to start off with. That would also, coordination with the police department and the district attorney's office. That's very helpful. But, Parks and Rec is a good way to get kids out of trouble. Gives them an opportunity to engage in sports, keeps them active, also helps them reinforce on their academics. So I would look to doing activities like that, but also reach out for community block grants. They have opportunities for investments in parks. If it's an old basketball court or an old soccer turf, reinvest in it. Bring it up to modern standards where it's desirable, and you will attract people to that community. And that's the best way, is when we have everyone working together, the neighborhoods get safe.
Time. Thank you. Emily?
Yes, first and foremost, we are approximately 250 uniformed officers short of full staff. And so we really do need to review and revise our benefits and salary compensation plans, and also look at creative solutions to help address community policing options, whether that is, coming up with housing incentives, but also creating affordable communities so people can live and serve in the same neighborhoods. But gang violence is a public health issue. And so we really need to work with our community partners to ensure that we have after-school programs in place. We need to make sure that we have job creation happening and economic development so that people have a pathway to a career. We need to work with and collaborate with our law enforcement agencies and make sure that we are collaborating in community events together. We do have a wonderful working relationship between the Board of Commissioners and all of our law enforcement branches right now. We need to build on that.
Great. All right, Emily, I know we cut you off. And so, again, I'm going through the chat here. There's a lot of good questions. There's some questions around poverty in DeKalb, which I'll come to in a second, but I would be remiss because these are just one of the many issues that I know that the NAACP focuses on every day. And that's the issue dealing with our education system in DeKalb County. DeKalb County has chosen a new superintendent. You have a board there. And so, Emily, I'm going to start with you because I don't think I've been to you first in a while. I know you have a lot of supporters watching, so I want to be fair. But let's talk about, what do you think the role of a DeKalb County Commissioner would be if you're elected to really work shoulder to shoulder with the DeKalb County Superintendent and the DeKalb County Board of Education to really try to improve the education system in DeKalb County? What is the role of a DeKalb County Commissioner to work in partnership with DeKalb County schools and particularly the superintendent and the board?
Thank you. Yeah, as a parent in DeKalb County, I've always been a bit dismayed that there hasn't been more collaboration and communication between the Board of Commissioners and the school board. Zoning issues impact schools, and conversely, when schools need more efficient thoroughfares, the Board of Commissioners needs to know about that. But even more importantly, I've witnessed firsthand the displacement of students away from their schools due to gentrification. So we really need to start with a community focus. And this is where the Board of Commissioners can really help work to improve our schools, is making sure that there is that communication and we were building on this community approach. I do understand a formal agreement of some sort was recently signed, outlining a structure between the collaboration between the Board of Commissioners and the school board for moving forward. I'm really excited to carry that mission forward and make sure there is open lines of communication.
All right, Tom, thank you. All right, we're gonna go Robert, Maryam, and then Ted. I wanna repeat, Robert, Maryam, and then Ted on the question around education.
So really it comes down to what's called the birth to jobs pipeline, which is healthy communities where you're able to raise your child. They get a good quality education, which is based on jobs opportunities that are in the community. And then we have growth. And that's really the basis of how that works. I've seen in other communities when they've worked on plans like a dropout, drop-in program, where if you've dropped out of high school, and a partnership between a city, the county and the Board of Education, they work on having a GED fair to get you back into school so that you can get that critical education and then take it to the next level from there. And so I think that's something that we could work very closely with the Board of Commissioners on, or Board of Education on, as a good first start.
Thank you. So next is going to be Maryam and then Ted.
Definitely collaboration is extremely important. I am a product of DeKalb County Public Schools, literally from elementary school to high school. And so I definitely know the system. And also, I think it's very, honestly, it's just a crazy concept that I personally had to get on a bus for like 2 hours to go to another better school. And so that's not the answer. It really, and we know that a lot of the funding comes from what the property values in the area are looking like. And so once again, we have to get down to the issues, the details, what's even building a healthy community. And also for the educational aspect, personally, you know, it's very important to teach children financial literacy, because I didn't even learn what credit was, you know, honestly, until even, you know, much, much later. And so just how important it is. So we really, really have to focus on these types of things for the community.
Thank you, Maryam. All right, Ted.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot there. And just to kind of harken back to what we were talking about, public safety, there is a school to prison pipeline paradigm, and it's something that is real. And when we look at communities that invest in universal after school and early childhood education and supporting that lifelong learning, the crime rate goes down and economic development goes up and prosperity goes up. I want to take most of this time to answer and share an example in Clarkston. So in Clarkston, there's an apartment complex called Willow Branch. It's actually right outside the city limits, but a lot of the kids go to Indian Creek Elementary in Clarkston. And the owner of this complex provides market rate rents, as well as after-school programs for her young people. About 90 kids at that apartment complex go to Indian Creek Elementary. She can literally chart the success rate over a 3-year period of increasing graduation and test scores, just by providing more affordable housing and opportunities for after-school for these kids. And we need to do that all over DeKalb.
Thank you so much. Okay, so President Hardy, I've been monitoring our chat, and there's a lot of good conversations in there. And I just want to make sure that I try to get every sort of question in that I can. But I think, as I mentioned before, and I want to go to Maryam on this first, is that there's been a lot of chat conversations in the chat, particularly around poverty. And so a couple of you guys have touched on it. About poverty and not just in DeKalb County, but in Georgia. And so my question is this: at a time where, you know, DeKalb County is celebrated for having one of, I think, the second best and most thriving medium income African-American population, there's a lot of middle class people in DeKalb County that are doing very well, that are of color. But we do have some issues with poverty in the county. And I know that the DeKalb County CEO, Michael Thurman, and the county commissioners have been doing everything they can to make sure that they deal with the issue around poverty. So if elected county commissioner, on day one, if you're presented with the issue around trying to end poverty in DeKalb County, what would be your plan? And I'm going to go to Maryam first, and then Emily.
So definitely poverty is a huge issue. And although many may be doing very well, the point is we cannot allow that people to be suffering in that way at all. And so, you know, community is really as healthy as the most disadvantaged. So of course, once again, I want to work with actual community and the other commissioners to really change this. And that's why I once again keep pushing for this the survey for accessibility and affordability of these determinants, so you can even figure out where are these areas, what are these issues. We have to get to the root of issues. And honestly, all of these issues we're talking about, really the root is we're not paying attention to the public health determinants of communities. And so that's why I want to take real data, and I want to use that, not data that you took from 10 people or you know, oh, I had a public meeting. I really want to take representative data.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to Emily, Ted, and then Robert.
Thank you for this question. It really sits at the heart of a lot of what my efforts have been in the community and as a community advocate around affordable housing and homelessness. First and foremost, we need to accelerate job creation. So we have a tremendous amount of work that we can do in the line of economic development and creating access to more jobs. But the second part of this question really gets at the heart of why we have communities that are overly burdened. So we have an opportunity to partner with our public health partners to alleviate the stressors of childcare. We have the opportunity to address public transportation to alleviate the amount of time that's spent during a commute. We can help through those channels, through bringing in HUD funds and community development block grants to really help lift up communities that are struggling so they have a pathway to get out of poverty.
Thank you, Emily. We're going to go Ted and then Robert.
Thank you, Tharon. The fundamental issue with poverty is that it's a lack of cash. And in order to address the issue of not having enough cash to live in this society, we have to address the fact that people aren't paid. And people who don't get paid enough money to do their jobs is faced with the rising rate of rents, utilities, and other aspects in our consumer economy mean that they will continue to get squeezed out. I'm proud that Clarkston was the first city in Georgia way back in 2016 to pass a $15 minimum wage for our city employees. The county has also established a $15 minimum wage for county employees, and we need to peg it to inflation. Because the fundamental challenge is that all the things that we pay for in our lives continue to go up every year, but wages have not kept up. And so we need to provide those opportunities for living wages. And absolutely, as we seek economic development, we need to be pushing living wage jobs.
All right, thank you, Ted. Robert?
All right. Well, poverty has been an issue that's been around for many, many years, and it's going to continue to be with us. I think the best approach to fixing poverty is going to be, again, working with the local schools, making sure that they can reach out to the local businesses and try and teach kids the skills necessary to make it when they leave school so that they have a job as soon as possible. Ideally speaking, if we can get them on into college and find ways to make college more affordable, that would help. Another component to realize is there was a study back in 2015 that said the average cost of car ownership per year is $8,500 a year. And if you're making minimum wage, a significant portion of your money is being tied up on a vehicle. And so I think that's where a transportation component is going to be critical. A good transportation system that, again, gets people from their homes to their jobs, to the shopping, to their schools, will be critical in approaching that. And, at the end of the day, I think we're going to have to ask our businesses, especially the large providers, raise your salaries.
All right, time. Okay, so again, I'm monitoring the chat, and so it's definitely some very entertaining conversations going on in the chat. I love my people. But Edwina, as you mentioned before, this is not the Tharon Johnson on Georgia gang. So I want to mix it up because this is the NAACP, and I get an opportunity to be not as scripted. And so I want to stay with you, Robert, because I just, for some reason, I don't know, I just want to sympathize with you with this internet connectivity. But you have definitely been a trooper, and you've got to do it. And so again, this is the NAACP. And a lot of the conversations in the chat has been about small businesses, particularly Black business. Mm-hmm. DeKalb County, you can't get around it. If you guys are going to be elected, you got to be able to have a very concise message around how you're going to help small businesses, but particularly minority businesses and minority women businesses as well. And so, Robert, I want to start with you. If you were so fortunate to get elected, what would be your plan? How would you work with other commissioners? How would you build a relationship with the CEO's office to make sure and decide DeKalb and other organizations? Ted mentioned the CIDs, but particularly, how would you help existing small business owners, particularly minority business owners and female business owners, grow? And what would be your plan to help startup small business owners, sort of have a even playing field with the LSBE program and other things in DeKalb County? What would you do?
So the first thing I would do to help small and minority businesses is actually reach out to, I guess GDOT has a list of small and minority businesses. And so that would be the first thing I would look at to sort of see what type of contracts the county is going to be opening up, and make sure that those RFPs and RFQs are pushed in the directions where small business owners are able to engage and respond to those. The next item is going to be, obviously you need to have strength and support on the commission. So work with my commissioners to make sure that that is a priority, that we're able to bring as many small businesses and minority businesses into the fold for growth within the county. I'll also say again that, if we work on our processes for small businesses, it's not right that it takes 6 to 8 months for a restaurant or any other type of business to open up in DeKalb County just because of the sewer problems. You can't make jobs or pay the rent if it takes you 8 months to get a business license.
All right, thank you. So we're going to go to Ted. Ted, I don't think I need to repeat the question to you. You've known me for a long time. I'm a small business owner myself, and if you haven't noticed, I am a Black man. So we're definitely going to go to Ted, and then we're going to go to Emily, and then we're going to go to Maryam to close us out on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's 2 components. One is just already established small businesses. The last thing that they need to worry about is dealing with inefficiencies or delays within just the permitting process, the business licensing application. We need to streamline everything that touches small businesses. And I think that will certainly affect minority-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses. The second thing I want to highlight is just talking about creating new entrepreneurship and new business opportunities. I'm proud that in Clarkston, we worked with Emory Gosweda Business School and the Start Me program. They've done over 300 startups in the last 3 years in Clarkston and Eastlake, in zip codes and communities that are majority minority, and helped create over $9 million in economic value just through those businesses. And so the county needs to be working with groups that are already helping people create that next big business or just the next small business that's going to provide food and salaries for people.
Thank you. All right, Emily.
Well, I think to start with, one of the major aspects of dealing with this COVID crisis is that we will likely see many minority-owned businesses crumble because the financing options won't be there. We know that big banks have a long history of biases with their lending practices. And so first and foremost, I would really want to partner with community-based banks to make sure that we have the funds available to minority-owned businesses to really get that seed funding to start and rejuvenate their businesses. The second is working with the SBA office and making sure that we've got programs in place for minority business owners or entrepreneurs to really start their programs and have a pathway to really see how to operate forward and leverage that status as a minority business owner to gain government contracts, whether that be within our county or state or even federal level. And again, I keep bringing this up, but we really need to work with Decide DeKalb to make sure we can implement all of those policies.
All right, thank you.
So yes, once again, we have to work with the actual business owners and also actually have that communication open to figure out what are also obstacles that they may be facing that we don't know about and other, issues as well. And so also focusing on grants and direct policy to provide funding support and making sure that contracts are designated to these minority businesses and not just based off of previous relationships because access to funding is really a huge obstacle for minority businesses. And making sure new development is also committed towards those who have been supporting the community, not just new entries into the community. And so definitely supporting loans also that are for expanding small businesses that already do exist, but also giving the opportunity for businesses that may need that startup money to also get started.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, you guys are doing wonderful. We're on schedule, and I want to make sure that President Hardy invites me back because we're going to end this at 8 o'clock. And so with that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for really being open and honest and answering some tough questions. And so what we're going to do now is that we're going to give each of you 2 minutes to close us out. And I want to go through the order. And so we're going to go back with the order which we started. And you guys will be proud of me. I think I kept sort of a good sheet here to make sure you felt like you were sort of mixed in the questioning. So we're going to go with Maryam, Emily, again, guys, women first. We got to make sure we pay respects to them, Ted, and then Robert. So you got 2 minutes for your closing statement. Tell us why we should vote for you. Make sure you tell us your name and what you're running for. And then after Robert is done, we're going to invite our co-host back to close us out, and thank everyone for doing it. But I want to thank you guys so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. I am really here 100% for the people. This is my home. I grew up in Clarkson and Stone Mountain, and I've lived all around DeKalb County. And honestly, I just working as a public health professional and also being a community activist ever since I was young, I know that there is a huge gap between the actual community and those that are supposed to be serving the community. And so I really want to make sure that when we are talking about data, somebody who's actually worked with data and has, worked for different projects, it's very important how the methodology of how you collect this data really does matter, because your numbers can change drastically if you're not collecting representative data. And so there has been just a huge gap and misunderstanding of data, and we really have to get in and ask the community, really ask people, what is it that you need? What are you lacking? Especially in public health determinants like affordability and accessibility of education, transportation. Why do we not have our rail system? We need our trains, actually. We need more of that, an efficient way to travel. We really need to focus on clean water, fresh food. These are basics. These are basics of a healthy community. So until we decide to focus on those, even though that might not be the usual way that things have been done in politics, but let's get down to it. The more we ignore these, the more situations will end up like we have in this pandemic. A part of the reason why everything has collapsed is because we have not been paying attention to these determinants at all. And that has to change, and I will change that.
All right, next, we'll go with Emily.
Thank you again, Tharon, for hosting tonight, and thank you, President Hardy and the NAACP for hosting. For too long, DeKalb has worked in silos with no collaboration or communication. In business and in my advocacy work, I've learned that real progress can only be made when we bring all voices to the table. We have to work collaboratively to solve the challenges we are facing that have been neglected for decades. Sewer infrastructure, transit options, and affordable housing. We need leadership that is open, ethical, and transparent as we work towards building a community that is inclusive, affordable, and safe for all of our residents. What sets me apart is the unique combination of business experience and community advocacy, which informs my collaborative approach and style. I'll leverage this skill to build consensus with residents, fellow commissioners, as well as local, regional, and federal partners to lead DeKalb to a vibrant future. To be clear, my focus is on DeKalb County, and it has always been on DeKalb County. I am not a politician. I'm a public servant. And I know that our residents are our greatest strength and ultimately who the commission is accountable to. Again, I want to thank you all for this opportunity. My name is Emily Halevy. I ask for your vote on June 9th for a vibrant future for all DeKalb families. My website is emilyfordekalb.com. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Ted?
Thank you, Tharon. Yeah, thank you, Tharon and the NAACP DeKalb branch for putting on this forum. Thank you, Maryam, Emily, and Robert. I really enjoyed listening to all the questions and answers and just campaigning on these really important issues in a really difficult time. And so I appreciate everyone's flexibility during this pandemic. I want to encourage everyone to go to my website, tedfordekalb.com, where you can read on my background, my policy initiatives. And I wanted to take this last part to hone in on something that we didn't cover that much, but I think is really important to the work the NAACP does, and that is with voting rights. And it's, to me, the last election was stolen from Stacey Abrams because of the perniciousness of voter suppression. And while we can't change the results of that election, we can't get a new governor anytime soon, we can act locally to create and expand voting rights and fight voter suppression. And so I put forward my DeKalb for the People Act, which includes establishing a county-wide election day holiday for all county employees and getting the whole community to participate and celebrating our democracy by making every general election day a paid holiday. I believe that we should develop an alternative campaign funding system, a public financing of elections that would match small contributions for qualified candidates. I think that our democracy is strengthened by the more people that are involved. And I think if we can make it easier for people to run for office at the grassroots level through this public financing system, we will see greater participation. And then the final thing, and this is something that the NAACP, the DeKalb County Democratic Party, the indivisible groups have been pushing on earlier this year, and I was right there at the Board of Elections in DeKalb pushing for the expansion of early voting time. So I think we need a permanent expansion of early voting times and locations. We need to expand anywhere in the county day election. We need ballot translations for all the major language groups, and we need to end the voter purges. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted. Robert?
Hey, thank you. First, I just want to say it's always hard going last after the other three candidates because they're so good. They are truly lots of good choices for everyone in the county. Again, I just want to thank the NAACP for putting this together. I truly appreciate the time and the effort that you guys have made for outreach for this. This is important for all of us. Some major things that we talked about that I think are important and what I'll do as a county commissioner. Transportation connectivity. Even when I was on the Dorville Council, we were talking with the top end mayors on a bus rapid transit system for DeKalb. Economic development, that means working with different communities to see what appropriate jobs and uses are acceptable in the neighborhoods. Also working to try and empower minority businesses because that is the growth of the community right there. When it comes to growth, one of my main concerns is if you look at the development trends for DeKalb County, we fall to 4th place behind Fulton, Gwinnett, and Cobb. And when we fall to 4th place, that impacts everything from our property values to the job options to the quality of schools that we have. And so it's very critical in my mind that we work on our infrastructure. Once we fix that water and sewer, it's not going to be the cure for everything, but it's going to be the first step. And, if we're able to have small businesses get started in less than 6 months, up in Gwinnett County, it's not unusual to get a restaurant business license within a month. That's reasonable for us. We should be able to do that. And I will push for that to happen. The next thing is going to be collaboration. We do have a lot of municipalities within DeKalb County, but we also have a lot of residents and communities that are standing on their own. And I will work to support all groups in our county with dignity and respect, which I think is what we really need right now in these crazy times that we're living in. And finally, vote Robert Patrick. I'm the only guy up here for District 1, but listen, I'll bring it to you. I will deliver. Okay? Thank you, guys. Oh, and I went to public school.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Rockdale County High.
Got that in. Yeah, glad you got that in. All right, with that, I'm going to kick it back over to our co-host. to close us out.
All right, thank you so much, Tharon. You did a great job, great questions. Our candidates did a great job answering them. And to all our participants, we thank you for joining us today. Our next forum will be Saturday, May 9th. We're going to have the Georgia representatives at 10 o'clock and at 2 o'clock. So please join us on Saturday. And I'll turn it back over to our Madam President, Teresa Hardy.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Tharon. Thank you, Nadine and Edwina and the whole crew, background with Albert and Steve, helping to just put this forum together to make it go as smooth as it does. I also want to just give acknowledgement to Georgia Act, which ACT stands for Advancing Communities Together. They gave us funds to actually help us get our infrastructure, our technical infrastructure together so that we can host like this. And we welcome any sponsors and donors to the NAACP to help us along, since we cannot do our events. We've depended on our events to support us, but the work of the NAACP has to go on whether we have COVID or not. So if you want to help push our agenda forward, we welcome you to be sponsors as well. We also have some co-partners in our community, which is Stone Mountain Delta Sigma Theta, the NCNW, NCBW is the Black Women's 100, Alpha Phi Alpha, Omega Psi Phi, Indivisible, Fair Districts, Fair Counts, Fair Fights, and then a host of churches throughout DeKalb that help us with the agenda of fighting for all of our rights here in DeKalb County. With that, if you're not a member of the NAACP, we welcome you to become a member of the NAACP. You can go to our website at www.naacpdekalb.org. Our membership is $30 annual, and you can become a lifetime member for $750 with a $75 payment per year. With all that said, I want to thank everyone for joining again. I thank you again, Tharon, for agreeing to do this. I thank all the participants for joining. Please share that we are trying to get this educational information out about all the candidates that's on the ballot for 2020. With that, good night. Thanks again.